Hey friends, it's me, Em again, and welcome back to my channel where we like to talk about all things sinister. If you're interested in true crime or if you like anything horror related, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can join me for all of our morbid conversations. For today's chat, I'm wondering who here grew up watching Wife Swap. I know I did, and if you did too, then you might be familiar with the Stockdale family. The family first premiered on the show in the early 2000s, and if you're unfamiliar with the show, the point of the show was to find two separate polarizing families that led completely different lifestyles. They took the mom from these two families and swapped them. The first week of the show, the mom would kind of live the life that the host mom's family lived, and they would live the same kind of lifestyle. They'd follow the same kind of rules. But the second week, the new mom would be able to update the rules of the household and implement a new way of living so that the host family could kind of see what it was like to live the other family's lifestyle. Now, the Stockdale family, on their premiere episode, on the episode they were on, they were portrayed as a very conservative Christian fundamentalist family. They lived on a farm. They were very self-sufficient. They were homeschooled. They didn't own a TV. They didn't play video games. The sons weren't allowed to date. It was just a very tightly run ship. The Stockdale family also had a bluegrass band. It was just known as the Stockdale Family Band. It was managed by the mother Kathryn, and the father Timothy, or Tim, played with his four sons, Calvin, Charles, Jacob, and James. Now, the older two boys did end up moving out of the household, and that was Charles and Calvin. And when they did, the band continued, but it was just downsized to a four-man band, and they were joined by a family friend named Joe Steiner. Years after their television appearance, on June 16, 2017, a 911 call was made from the landline of the family home there in Ohio, but it was hung up before anybody actually said anything on the phone. There was no communication, there was nothing. Police still responded because a 911 call with nobody on the other line, they responded to check it out, and when they did, they saw the door open and there was someone on the floor, a victim inside, just inside the door. What they ended up finding that day was the youngest son, James, who was 21 years old at the time. He was dead on arrival. He had been shot with a shotgun and did not survive the shooting. They also found the mother, Kathryn. She was also dead on arrival. She was also shot with a shotgun. And they found Jacob, who was not dead, but he was bleeding profusely. He had likewise been shot. Now, like I said before, the two older brothers were no longer living there, and the dad actually happened to be out of the home at the time. So there was nobody else home. It was just those three. Now, the neighbors did say that they heard 10 to 12 gunshots that night, but I would like to point out, as I've said in previous videos, I have a couple guns myself. I do shoot guns occasionally just as a hobby. I also live out on some land on a farmhouse. It's not unusual to hear gunshots when you live out on a farm. You know, a lot of people in that area have that as a hobby. So it's not necessarily super concerning when you live in an area like that to hear gunshots. I just want that to be, it's just a little sidebar. Take it what you will. Now, Jacob did end up surviving that night. He was taken to Cleveland Metro Health Hospital, and where he had a very lengthy recovery. He had a lot of rehabilitation and a lot of surgeries, but he did end up surviving that night. He was the only survivor, but he did end up surviving. Now, it would be over a year. It wasn't until September 27th that an arrest was actually made. And on September 27th, 2018, that is when they arrested Jacob. And they arrested Jacob because the gunshot wound that Jacob had survived was self-inflicted. Jacob had actually went and killed his mom and his brother before he attempted to kill himself, and he just was not successful. Now, obviously, having a gunshot wound to the head caused the proceedings to have a delay. It took a while for him to recover from such an injury, but there were also other delays that kind of kept pushing it back. In fact, it would be about 2 years before any kind of trial proceedings would actually begin with Jacob. When he was arrested in September, he was charged with 2 counts of murder, and he pled not guilty to both counts by reason of insanity. It wasn't until January the following year that he had his first hearing, where he met with his defense attorney and they requested a psychological evaluation. One psychologist deemed him competent, and the other psychologist said he was mentally unfit. Because of this, in May, he was sent to the Heartland Behavioral Healthcare Facility, where he would have extensive treatment as well as testing to see where his mental state is currently, as well as where it may have been during the time of the shootings. Dr. Arcangela Wood was the psychiatrist that was assigned to Jacob's case at that facility. And after months of treatment and after months of testing, she would submit a report to the Stark County Common Pleas Court. And the report that she submitted said that he was in fact fit to stand trial. The trial was scheduled to begin in early 2021. But because of COVID, it was pushed back to May of 2021. However, a week before the trial actually began, Jacob pled guilty to both counts. Now, during this time, he had the full support of the remaining family members. His dad and his 2 brothers, they supported him through this whole thing. Obviously, they didn't support the actions, but the lifestyle that they lived and the values that they were raised with, they had forgiven him, and they were just wanting the best possible outcome for him. While they never actually spoke on record at any of the court proceedings, they did request the lightest sentence possible, but the judge did award him 15 years for each count, so he's likely going to be serving 30 years for the double homicide, but he did not get the death penalty. And there you have it. There's been no real definitive answer as to the motive behind this case and what caused him to snap and kill his mom and his brother. But there has been a lot of speculation, and most of that speculation centers around the strict nature of his upbringing and the super conservative lifestyle that he just kind of had thrown onto him. I'm not showing it here, but it's pretty easy to find that episode of Wife Swap if you kind of want a little bit of a glimpse into the life that he lived and how strict it was. When I tell you that it was a very strict lifestyle, you can kind of catch a glimpse into what kind of life he was living there with his brothers and with his mom. Now, if that's the case, I still don't think it's justified in his actions, and certainly not with his brother. His brother didn't do anything. Lori Tonkovich is actually the mom who swapped with Kathryn in that episode, and she has since spoken out about it too. And she, you can see here, she agrees with that sentiment, that she thinks a lot of his upbringing and specifically the way that household was run had a lot to do with it. But again, this is all speculation.
When you first heard about what happened to the Stockdale family, what was your reaction?
I actually, when my son called me to tell me what had happened, he didn't know who the shooter was. I knew immediately.
You knew in your heart that it was Jacob.
Yeah.
Cops say
And even if that was the case, even if it was because he had such a strict household, I mean, he was 25 at the time. He could have moved out. He could have gotten away from it. And why would you take out your brother? James did nothing. James wasn't in charge of the rules or the way the house was run. Like, I just don't understand why you would involve your brother if you were really mad at your parents and if your parents were the reason. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting one. Like I said, I grew up watching Wife Swap. When I was in high school, we would come home, TLC was all the rage, anything from Extreme Home Makeover with Trading Spaces and Wife Swap and Super Nanny. I watched all that junk reality TV, and I watched Wife Swap a lot, and I don't know, it just, this one feels so sinister to me because you can actually go back and you can see videos of the family. You can find videos of Jacob and James performing together on YouTube. There's videos of the two of them on YouTube singing and playing music together. And it's just, it seems so sinister because you have these people who are on like this family friendly, I don't want to call it a sitcom, but this family friendly reality show where you get a peek into their lives and you get to see them act as a family. And then a decade later, somebody wipes out the whole family, and somebody who wipes out the family is one of the brothers. It's just, it's crazy to me. It feels morbid. It feels morbid to me because you do get a glimpse into that family, and you kind of get a peek behind the curtain and see a look at what it was before things went south. And it's not often that you get to do that. And the fact that it's commemorated and it's on digital record and you can watch it anytime. And anyway, friends, it has been fun chatting with you, and I will make sure I see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.